Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone Season 3, Episode 17. It's called One More Pallbearer. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. And this episode has an interesting premise where a very wealthy man decides to play a very elaborate practical joke, if you want to call it that, although it feels like it's a bit more serious than a joke, all things considered. But he tries to convince three people from his past that there has been a nuclear apocalypse outside from his safety bunker, which is 300 feet beneath a skyscraper in New York. I do wonder how they dug down 300 feet in the middle of New York City without anyone noticing. Well, it's a secret, I suppose, but still. It's a very weird place for a 300 feet bunker. But yeah, and obviously as the episode goes on, he sort of gradually reveals why he wants them there and what's going on. But I think what the interesting thing about this episode to me is that they could have made the fact that it's all fake. That could have been part of a twist if they wanted to, but they don't. The episode starts with him with an electrician who's setting up his sound system to make all the noises sound realistic and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting. But that is the premise of the episode. And it definitely goes to some interesting places at the end. So, Tara, what did you think of One More Pallbearer?
I thought it was great. I really like this one. I like the plot, the revenge side of things. I like the message at the end about holding grudges and being in a prison in your mind.
Yeah, that's one actually. I mean, it's not a bad rating in IMDb. The average rating is 7.5, but it's notably under a lot of the greats. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to suggest that this is one of the greats. I don't want to overhype it too much. But I do actually think it's a really strong concept that maybe only suffers a little bit in trying to keep the conversation of the Paul, the millionaire or whatever he is, and his three targets. Maybe there's maybe a little bit of stalling there, or maybe a little bit more could have been added to that sort of section. But other than that, I like it quite a bit. It does a thing where it pulls a very obvious twist at the end that I kind of felt like this is the obvious thing I thought of for a second and threw out as a joke. I was like, no, they're going to do that. That's too obvious and stupid. And then for a second, it felt like they were doing the twist. And then they kind of double twisted it, where it was like,
right.
Oh, it's just in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Very
but
good.
But it's not the bad kind of it's all in his mind.
No, this is more. This actually has meaning. This it actually means something for his character, that he's eternally alone because he can't let grudges go. He's eternally, as far as he's concerned, there really has been a nuclear holocaust, and he's on his own because all the bridges are burned. This is the extreme version. The nuclear burned to the ground. So, no, a very interesting concept.
I like the lead actor too. He's a Bond villain from the first Sean Connery one, Dr. No. He's the titular Dr. No. But I don't know. I like the actor. I think he's sort of a mesh between Tommy Lee Jones and James Mason. I see both of them in his face, but he's got that evil charisma that I enjoy watching.
I think my favorite thing about this episode, not only just the general idea of he gets this big projector screen and he's going to show them what's supposed to be a live feed of the nuclear bomb going off, and not just that he's got the sound system and all the rest of it. Although I feel like some of them maybe should question, would you actually hear the sirens from 300 feet below the ground? I don't know if you would, but neither here nor there. Anyway, but what I like about this is that his whole plan is to make them want to beg him to stay and ask for forgiveness for what they did to him in his past, because he thinks that they'll be so desperate to live, thinking that everyone's going to die in a couple hours when the bombs drop, that they'll be willing to beg and they'll need him and he'll feel needed and they'll be begging for help, and he wants to feel that need from them. And
right, because he's like a billionaire or something. He's super rich, and he's for some reason got these three people together from his pretty much his childhood. Yeah, where he's just like, you guys owe me an apology still.
Yeah, he sees himself as being hard done by and that they've all wronged him. Although as we actually hear the stories come out from their sides, it's actually no, he was a little shit, and they get rightfully give him into trouble.
One of them's his drill sergeant or whatever, so that would have been. He would have been a young adult. I think they said it was 20 years ago, but it's still like
different stages of his life. Yeah, it's
right.
You know, it's the Reverend from when he was a child,
Teenager
or a teenager,
maybe?
yeah, and then a teacher from when he was in school, obviously.
Yeah.
He actually drove someone to commit suicide, is one of the things we hear, which is like really dark. But anyway,
Yeah.
what I was getting to is the thing I like about this is that it doesn't work. At no point does any one of these three characters ever actually contemplate for a second that they want to beg. Their attitude at all times, like the Reverend, for example, who's got a wife, his attitude and his response never changes. If I'm going to die today, I'm going to go die with my wife, and that's how I'm going to die. I'm not going to stay down here without her. No, I'm going to, and it never changes. All three of them never once fall for it, right?
Right.
I mean, they think it's real, don't get me wrong. They think the attack is coming, but they never do what he expected of them. And I think that just adds to his warped view of how people are and how they think and what he's deserving of, is that none of them respond in the way that he assumed they would.
Right. Well, he's been planning this revenge for a long time. So it's like he has these scenarios played out in his head perfectly, but nobody responds in the way that his brain said they would respond.
Which I actually think
we kind of do that too, you know, like, well, have you ever been in a situation where you thought, well, if I do this, then they'll be sorry, but like, or like have like conversations or fights in your mind?
I mean, I have definitely done those, and I'm going to give you an example. It's not so much a fight; it's nothing as serious as those two examples, right? But occasionally, at the end of a science fiction movie podcast called The Atomic Cinema Experiment, there'll be an obvious joke to make that I'll set up for my co-host, and I'll think, "There's no way she won't like get the punchline of this joke. There's no way she won't jump in and say it." And
I think I know where you're going with this, but it's not coming to me.
That's funny. That's funny. Funny, Tara. That's good. But no, I honestly think them never reacting like he expects them to, not one of them, is what gives this episode its depth. Because I think if they actually did sort of falter for a bit and like beg, and maybe because they could have done a thing where they do start to beg, but then there's like a tell sign, like maybe something reveals that it's fake, and then they leave afterwards. But they don't do that. They think it's real the whole time, and they choose to leave anyway. And obviously, once they get to the city and they go out and whatever, obviously very quickly they'll become aware that all of it was fake anyway. But they never, because the whole thing is essentially a bottle up until the very end where we follow the main character up and out, because that's the end of the story. It never leaves this bunker, and while they're down there, they believe this until they leave, and they never react like he thought they would. And it's the idea is that he is. Like, he sees himself as the main character, right? And they're all supporting characters in his story. But that's not the case. They all have their own stories, and he's a footnote in all of theirs.
Right.
And he never understood that.
And from a while ago, too.
Yeah, this is like someone from their past who...
Yeah.
They recognize him.
One of the first things he says is, do you recognize me, to like all three of them?
And the teacher's like, yeah. But the teacher actually says, yeah, you were a troublemaker, and I dare say you're probably a troublemaker still to this day, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for him, it was for the teacher, it was that he cheated on a test, but not just, and got caught, but not just that, he tried to like pin it on somebody else, like he gave his answer key or whatever, or shoved it in like someone else's pocket or desk so that they would get in trouble for it instead. So... like, he was like, yeah, like you said, like, he was kind of a little shit. Like, he got caught cheating. And he's like, well, you should have shown compassion to a young kid. And she's like, I do show compassion to kids. I didn't show compassion to you in this case because you were not worthy of it.
It's the sort of thing where he almost sounds like he has a point until you hear more of the story. Because you're like, oh, okay, yeah, as a teacher, yes, you should be understanding that when someone does something bad, you try and make them understand why they've done what's wrong, blah, blah, blah. But then she's like, and you try to frame someone. And then the Reverend starts talking about how you drove someone to suicide. And it's like, okay, you're not just like a little shit, you're a conniving, evil piece of shit.
I don't remember what happened with the army guy, but I do remember that he was dishonorably discharged for it. So that was the grudge he had. Yeah.
But like I say, I think... that's where the strength of the episode really comes from. I love the premise, I love the set, and if it had played more like I had sort of said they could have done it, where they do fall into the trap, but then like maybe the screen flickers or maybe the sound system fails or something, and something gives it away, and then they all leave in a huff. But the fact that it never does that easy choice, and it instead is more about them sort of sticking to it, almost like a Star Trek episode to me in a weird way.
I think it feels like a Bond movie. Like, it feels like a Bond villain who's more of like, he's got this really big elaborate plan to get back at everybody, to get back at 007. But instead of, I mean, a lot of Bond villains kind of feel like this anyway. It kind of feels childish. Like a mature person would look back and like know what they did wrong. Mm-hmm. But instead he's like, I can't be wrong. So it must be everyone else that's wrong. And I'll make them grovel. Like, I'll make them realize that they shouldn't have crossed me. Like, it's a very poisonous way of thinking, just letting that hate fester for so long as an adult.
Yeah, first thing I'd say to what you just said there is, are you sure this Bond comparison isn't just because you just told me that he played the villain in a Bond movie?
I mean, that's true, but it is very Bond.
I mean, I've only seen a handful of Bond movies and I'm not a big fan of them, so I'll take your word for it, but it's not what I imagined the Bond villain to be. But certainly, I think the interesting point as well is that he has become a billionaire, or probably a millionaire, going by the Austin Powers inflation scale. This is the 60s, so it has to be a millionaire, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was 3 million. I think
it was 3 million.
His name is on the building.
Yes, because you get to billions until about 1998, which is when Austin Powers came out. And a million's not quite what it used to be at that point. But
right, it's been a while.
There's this idea that he's so driven to be the best, and he's probably cheated and conned his way and scammed his way, but he has found success, not on a personal level, not in a way that he has meaningful relationships. He seems to be this pathetic, lonely, really vindictive asshole. Yeah. But he's almost like, it feels like he's proved himself, like, no, I am a good person, look at how much success I've had. Only to be felt like he's a child again when he talks to these three people, and they're like, no, we remember what you are, what you did, you're still a piece of shit. Doesn't matter how much money you've made.
Right.
The episode's actually doing a lot from a character building perspective. There's actually there's a lot of character layers here, from all the various stories, from the way he interacts with them, from the way they interact back to him. All of it really paints a picture and tells a story of, like, it's almost a tragedy of this person who just can't understand. And that's why the ending, where for a second you think the twist is going to be that, wait, he somehow predicted correctly that there was a nuclear bomb coming, and he gets up. And I was almost going to make the complaint I did in the previous episode way back in season 1, where I'm like, where's the radiation? Why is he just okay walking around all this rubble? This doesn't make any sense. But then, of course, and I think this is actually a way more effective ending, is that it cuts to what's actually going on, and the building's still fine. There's like passers-by in the street looking at him, and he's lying there yelling as if the world's dead. But everyone's around him going like, what's he talking about? Are you okay, sir? And he doesn't respond to them. He doesn't respond to the police officer. He doesn't respond to anyone. And it's this, he's driven himself mad because the one thing he was like obsessed with that he thought was going to work didn't. And now he doesn't know how to function. So this is a better episode than the average rate in IMDb would. And it's not that it's a terrible
rating.
Low? It's 7.5. It's not that low, but it's lower than the, like, because all the classics, all the great episodes, they're all like in the high 8s, and some will even dip it at the 9, I think. So it just, I feel like this is better than some of the things that are in the 8s, is what I'm saying. I think this is actually a really good episode.
I thought this one was great when I watched it. Yeah.
May even be one of the best of the season so far.
Yeah, I thought the ending was super strong. Like, just I agree. I'm like, okay, so the bomb is real. Like, I mean, that would be a Twilight Zone twist, but then, but I like the double twist of, oh no, it's just in his mind. He's trapped in his mind because of all these fantasies that he's played out, and everything's like collapsed on him, and now he's sort of imprisoned in that fantasy that he created.
Yeah, and for the record, I wouldn't have hated, because when I thought the bomb had happened and he's coming up, I sort of chuckled and went, okay, I kind of like this in like a sort of funny pulp, like dark, like in a dark,
that everybody was
way.
Willing to die, and they actually did.
Well, not so much that part, just the dark joke of him predicting it, and then, oh shit, I actually have to live in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Oh crap,
alone.
There's a dark humor to that I kind of appreciate, but the actual ending, when it reveals this is in his head, is actually more meaningful and again adds to the depth of the story and the depth of the characterization, which I think the episode, as far as characterization for a character goes, this may be one of the stronger episodes this show has even had, I think, because it's all about his character. It's all about how he thinks, how he views the world, how he views other people, his faults, and it's a character study, and I think it's a really good episode of that. So, yeah. I almost want to take back that one nitpick I had, because now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, nah, there was so much like from his interactions with those characters that I don't even know if I would add anything there now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, and I thought they were like extremely strong characters as well, especially the teacher. I thought she was a standout.
Yeah.
For just like, I'm not budging. I was right then and I'm right today. You're still a shit.
yeah, I think that's fair. And I think because they start you off with the drill sergeant, and I think inherently because he's just going to be the least likable of the three. Because I think we all, because drill sergeants are really angry people who yell at everyone. Like he's inherently going to be the one who comes off as a dick, and that maybe he's got a point for getting revenge. But once it goes to the other two, who are far more, like, because you think of a teacher and you think of a reverend, you definitely think. I mean,
think of like empathy and people who are good with others.
I mean, yeah, sure. Part. Don't get me wrong. You can encounter a dickhead teacher from time to time. You can encounter a dickhead reverend. That is possible, but they're not typically thought of as that, though.
Right.
So
you tend to think of empathy and compassion with both of those.
Yes. That's certainly what they're supposed to do, at the very least. And both of these examples seem like they're fine, upstanding presentations of those professions.
Right.
So that was a good episode. This is a really good episode, in fact. One more Pallbearer. I think this, I would say, is a hidden gem, because again, the rating's not that low. It's kind of in that it's just a good episode kind of rating. I think that's a bit too low, though.
Yeah, 7.5 seems kind of low, but yeah. I would suspect this one would be in the 8s, but it's not that far.
So moving on to next week, then the next episode. Obviously, Rod told us about at the end. All he really said is that someone's going to wear someone else's shoes, and all of a sudden the shoes are going to take them to whatever the person who died that was in the shoes originally was going to go. So the description on IMDb is: a homeless man takes the shoes of a dead gangster and steps into his life. What I'm unsure about, and I'm sure this will be very quickly apparent when we actually watch the episode, is everyone else going to see the gangster and just act as if he's like, and he's just a homeless guy, will be confused and not understand why they're treating him this way? Or are they going to see a homeless man showing up at their places of business and living and whatnot?
I imagine they'll see, I mean, isn't it like walk a mile in someone's shoes? So you're probably going to see the gangster. Yes.
But we'll just have to play with that. I wonder, maybe they'll do a thing where one person sees him for who he really is, and that may be like a story beat or something.
This one sounds familiar. I think I have seen it, even though I'm not able to answer that question. But
yeah, it's called Dead Man's Shoes, which is, I mean, well, fair enough. It's what you expect, given what I just told you about the plot. it's about as just straight to the point as one can get. But there you go. That'll be in next week's episode of Twilight Zone. Hopefully you enjoyed our discussion on this one. You can let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Liking and subscribing is super important on YouTube. It is kind of how they gauge success and share us out to more people. Tara will tell you how you can support us financially.
Yeah, if you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you'll get bonus features and bonus episodes of other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to these Twilight Zone reviews 1 week early. So please check it out. Thank you.
And you can also catch us on Twitter at @mild_fuzz for channel updates and other bits of info and stuff. Also, look out. I mean, it's probably going to have been up by now, but there'll be a top 50 results show where our audience have been voting in. And we never really promoted it on the Twilight Zone reviews because we're a few weeks ahead in these, so it was, by the time we knew we were doing it, it was kind of already too late to be in time to tell you that it was happening. But there'll be a top 50 TV shows of all time as voted for by our audience. So hopefully a lot of you participated in that. We'll see where Twilight Zone lands. But that will be myself and Connor doing the results for that. So look out for that. But hey, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. in the Twilight Zone.